Shall I go make a sandwich or shall I put on some spandex again? Let's do that.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Nerds International proudly presents...
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that would take us through ancient medieval fantasy. Across the far reaches of space, to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Welcome to episode 75 of the Wild Eye Podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment Savage Worlds aimed at beginners and veterans unlike Eric Lamoureux. What's going on, sweet cheeks? It just seems like just yesterday we were hanging out.
I know. I'm doing that interview. It's good. Easter Sunday. Gonna eat some chocolate today.
You gonna go hunt for some eggs in the backyard?
And it's quite muddy out there. I'm not sure I want to do that.
Go get some brown ones. Hey, speckled brown
Did you
eggs.
set that up for your family, Gary? No,
Nope.
your kids are too old for that now, huh?
They don't want to have anything to do with me. In fact, the less the better. That's the stage I'm at right now. My one kid doesn't come out of a room and the other one's never here. What about you, Paris? What are your kids doing?
My son's at a party right now, as Easter's almost over for us in about 2.5 hours. Yeah, 2.5 hours Easter finishes for us, and then you just started. You guys are always so behind us.
Yep, we're behind the times. I think
apart from that, everything's really cool. I'm on holidays at the moment. I'm de-stressed. I'm having time to write some of my own stuff at the moment, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm chilling. I'm good.
Nice, fantastic. Awesome. What do we got in the show today? What are we doing, Lamoureux? What's happening?
Well, let's get to some feedback first. Eric Scott Buchanan, he says, unfortunately, out of the jump starts, very few catches my interest. I'm especially tired of Tolkienist fantasy. Where are all the original ideas? When is another game like Lowlife or something else equally original gonna come around? Well, I don't know. I looked at the jump starts, and there's only maybe one or two out of them that feel like Tolkien type of fantasies. There's a lot of very original ideas in there, I think, personally. Now, is the delivery good? That's yeah, I think that's subjective, but to say that they're all like D&D type of fantasy in there, I don't know. I would disagree. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at them a little bit, but
I've been surfing. Go ahead, Paris.
Yeah, I've looked at a few. Obviously, Wise Guys is my favorite, and that's not because I'm sucking up to Eric. Honest, it is a great jump start.
Yeah, right.
But I guess that's the thing. I guess that's the thing about what jump starts are. There, you see a whole bunch of stuff. Not all of it's going to appeal, and there's various things that you can choose from. There are more fantasy ones than any others. I will agree with that. I don't think they're all Tolkien-esque though. But yeah, I don't know. I find it hard to sort of rip on jump starts because I get while you're expecting. I think people are expecting too much of a mini setting out of them. Me personally, no, I'm quite happy with the jump starts we've got so far.
Interesting.
Oh, long silence. Damn.
I'm just kind of skimming through them to see what's what, and he is kind of right. There is sort of a lot of fantasy ones. Not to start naming them all off, but I'm just on the second bundle, and there's 2 or 3 in there. But there's still some good ones. I haven't actually taken the time to read them all, but yeah, some of them look good, I think. Any of them stick out to you, Lamoureux?
I I haven't had a chance to read them all that much, but the after looked pretty good. Trailer Park, well, I have the full one for Trailer Park. That looks good. Dead End is well put together. The one from the Savage Sign, I don't remember the title. That one's well put together also. I think there's quality in there, but yeah, there's also maybe a little bit lacking in certain areas. But there's a nice spread in there too. I mean, you got some really original ideas in there, and I don't know why. I mean, personally, I'm tired of Tolkienist fantasy as well. But there's one thing that keeps coming up in the Savage Worlds community is when are we going to get our Forgotten Realms type of setting? And there isn't any. Now there's one that Tyrnador from Grammel that is going to fill that gap, I think. So all the other ones, they're all theme. Hellfrost is theme. What is it? Shintar. It's probably close.
Shintar.
Yep, it's close, but there isn't that many for Savage Worlds. In other systems and other RPGs, yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just me.
I haven't played much Shintar. I don't even know still what it's called. I haven't played much of it. I played a couple of times with Stefan Dragonspawn, and it seems to sort of cover that fantasy niche. But out of all these Kickstarters that is up, is there anything that is like way off the chain, like Low Life? I don't think there is.
No, not really.
Yeah, but Low Life is so unique. I mean, how could you? It'd be very hard for someone to come up with something that's similar to that without copying it, really. And it depends what you mean by unique. I mean, Wise Guys is unique because there's just nothing else out there like it right now. So, again, I guess the question is, yeah, what's he looking for with another Low Life? And why, if Low Life is so cool, why do you want another one?
Yeah, I get that.
Interesting.
All right. Well, so what's going on with your program over there, Paris, GenU Gamer?
Yeah, well, it's been a huge couple of weeks for us. We've moved into our new premises, so now we've got 2 rooms, which are both about 4 times the size of our last site, which is outstanding. Now I can split up the video gaming to the role playing, and we're not sort of sitting on top of each other's laps, which was getting a bit uncomfortable and awkward. And we can fit a lot more people in now, which is really cool.
You don't have to play in the bathroom anymore.
No, man, no. We've I can actually set up stuff permanently now, which is cool. And look, I might still play in the bathroom, but at least I do it alone now, which is good. But the big thing for us is that I was let know on the grapevine that the program's been nominated for an award at the upcoming 2019 Victorian Disability Awards. We've been nominated in the category of excellence in creative and inclusive communities. And I read some of the letters that some parents of some of the kids I work with and even some of the support coordinators that for some of our clients had written as part of the submission. And man, I was in tears. I'm going to be honest, I was in tears. But the common thread with it all was just how much of a difference for these guys it was to be part of a gaming group. It's not even just because of gamer, but what it meant to their lives to be taken out of that isolation and brought into gaming with other people. And that's the beauty of gaming. That is, gamer or not, your local friendly gaming store, your local club, your school, wherever you're playing, just invite someone to your game, man, especially if they seem a bit on the outer or, they're not finding it hard to make friends. You can genuinely change someone's life just by bringing them into one of your games and making them feel part of it and having a go.
Wow. So, yeah, what does that mean? Let's say you guys win. How much money are we talking about here?
I don't even know what the reward is. I wasn't supposed to know about it per se, I guess. I did get I did get some notification to be aware of it. I think the only thing that'll happen is they'll make me wear a suit and I'll have to go stand on something if we win, in front of people. I don't want to do that. I go to work every day in my best Kevin Smith lookalike outfit. I don't want to get in a suit. Damn.
Stand on one of the kids. You just got to have them come up and stand on them. That's fantastic, man. Congratulations. I hope you win and you make millions, and then you can come to Con on the Cob.
There's no millions. I am desperately saving to come to Con on the Cob, and it's not just me. It's a real team effort, especially now with Heidi and Ryan there. And it's awesome. I'm proud, but I'm more proud of the result, like what's happening for these kids as opposed to what we've achieved. So yeah, it's really cool. I'll let you know if we win it, though. I'm sure I'll be jumping up and down a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if not direct money, I'm sure winning an award like that would mean, better funding at some point. That's something you can wave in front of investors or government officials. Yeah.
We did end up in the newspaper last week, which was pretty cool. So yeah, the word's getting out, and who knows? Maybe we'll have to go to an 8-time bigger premises next. I'm not sure.
What did you end up in the newspaper for? Did your building light on fire or something?
No. There was it was just an expose on. It was actually not on. It talked about Gamer, but it was more focused on one of the young men that's attended Gamer and what changes it had made to his life. So it was more of an expose on him as opposed to Gamer itself. But they did let everyone know where he went, and so I've been fielding phone calls. That's been really cool.
Nice, Eric. You should take a trip to Australia and go sign up for this. You could, maybe learn a few life skills.
Yeah, I need a group.
a better one than you have now.
We'll give you a job, Eric.
Inclusion. No, I'm really proud of you, man. I mean, I've been following your progress for a couple of years now, and it started out just a little program that you ran at your local game store, and now, wow. Soon you'll be international, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a big step up.
I want to be at Con on the Cob.
A big step up from the van you used to run your show out of.
Oh, the bus for 8 weeks, man, kill me. I want to do that again.
All right, let's get to some news.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the news. The news is incoming. Prepare yourself for the news. News!
And some announcements about the Nerds International Network and the Wild Die podcast.
So we got the conversion document out. Pinnacle finally released it. This is in case you don't want to buy Adventure Edition or you don't have access to the book. You can use your Deluxe book and use the conversion document to update you to the rules, which is, 50-some pages?
Wow.
Gary, you added up? Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it looks really comprehensive and well done on 2 guys that did that worked on that. That must have been a lot of work.
The guide also is printer friendly. I don't know if you noticed that. The layout is very similar, like the font and whatnot, but it essentially goes over everything that has been changed, which is kind of neat. I mean, if you just wanted to read this is actually an interesting read. You can find out what they changed, why they changed it, all that kind of stuff is in here, which is pretty slick. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. But yeah, this document is fairly plain. It's just basically white paper with just the font on it. So, it's essentially set up for easy printing or to be easy on your ink.
Yep. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. If not, just Google it. You can find it on the Pinnacle website. That was released last week, I think.
Man, they've really given away what was sort of. I know you buy the SWADE book because it looks good and it's laid out better and it's got an index, but all the tables and everything are in here.
Yeah, I mean, you could use your Deluxe book and that and run the game. Of course, for some of the edges, the changes and hindrances, I mean, it tells you what changed, but you don't get the new text from it. But you get the gist of the changes. That's what the new book is for. If you want the updated text, then you get the book. Still PDF were $10. So really, don't be cheap.
Wow. Somebody really needs a GenU gaming intervention all of a sudden. Don't be cheap.
Usually that's your tagline, Gary.
This is true.
It's only $50. Just get it. If you can't afford $50 to game,
you shouldn't be gaming.
What are you doing?
You
should be gaming.
You should be out picking up pop bottles, man. You gotta get a second job.
So you're up for next year's Inclusive Community Award then.
Wow.
Only for the rich. All right, next up, a release. Well, a couple of releases from Savage Worlds Adventurers Guild. This is the equivalent of the DM's Guild, but for Savage Worlds. So it's been picking up some good releases there. Interesting ones. There's a Savage Guide to Dinosaurs from Gaming with Gage. So this is basically Jurassic Park. Right, Gary? I mean, you got to play a game.
I did, yeah.
GM by Gage, yeah.
Yeah, I was GM'd by Gage. It was fantastic. We did a little bit of theater of the mind, and we were over on Bobby's Twitch channel. I can't remember the name of it. It's Savage One Shot, something like that.
Savage of Adventures Wednesday One Shot.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. I had a couple of jackasses in the chat channel that were making some comments that almost got themselves kicked out, but we won't talk about that. We're here to talk about the Savage Guide to Dinosaurs, which is actually pretty cool. The adventure was a lot of fun. So this is a 14-page document, PDF. I think it's $1. It breaks down, what is there, 1, 2, 3, there's probably 10, 15 different dinosaurs that are in this thing that he's converted over or created, and then the adventure is called Dino World, which is pretty cool. This rich guy wants you to go to Dino World, which is essentially Jurassic Park, and grab some of the eggs so that you can bring them back, and he can do whatever. And he's paying you like $100,000 in eggs, and he wants you to get 3 of them. And it comes complete with not only that adventure that was a lot of fun, but they set up the certain areas of the park and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. And it comes with 6 pre-gens. I played Hopper Jones, who's he's the dumb gun nut. His tagline basically is nothing. There's no problem can't be solved by firing around after it. So you're gonna shoot things and blow stuff up and whatnot. It was pretty good. It was a lot of fun, man. I'm not gonna tell you how it ended.
Yeah, for $1, I mean, if you can't afford to pay $1 for a product,
you shouldn't be gaming.
That's right. So yeah, go check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes, of course, as always. And then a good friend of the show, well, used to be a co-host, Manuel Sambs of Veiled Fury Entertainment, released 2, not 1, but 2 products recently. There's Distant Journeys and Fast Lane Hacking. So the Fast Lane Hacking is basically just the hacking rules for his, I think he calls it Sprawl Runners now. It's Shadowrun, but with the serial numbers filed off. And this is kind of a preview, a part of the setting that he released. And Distant Journeys is when you go and travel, it gives roles to certain members of the party. One's going to be the scout, one is the kind of quartermaster, and it gives like jobs for everybody to do within the game. So it's been well received, and again, $1 each. So links in the show notes.
Is there anything in Distant Journeys that is going to help somebody, say, do oh man, why am I drawing a blank on this one? What's it called when you're on a journey, or an interlude? That's the word I was looking for. Is there anything in there that's going to help your players do an interlude, maybe add to it or stuff like that? Because I find that sometimes when you're running an interlude, players have a hard time sort of coming up with a backstory for their characters or telling a story.
You know what? I would have to get back to you on that because I don't remember. I looked at it when I bought it, but I can't. I can't say. Maybe we'll have. I don't know. Sorry, I failed you.
I think you looked at the statement for your receipt, and that was about it, mister.
Maybe a review for next episode on both of them. A real quick one.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh man, I guess you're killing me.
Oh my God. All right.
All right. So for the show today, we got another Jumpstart review, this time from Gary, City of the Steam Sun. And then we're going to take it to the edge with a discussion on hindrances that Paris brought up. So, yeah, let's get between the covers.
Oh, yeah. Welcome, one and all, to Between the Covers, the hottest and most greased up segment on this podcast. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, things are gonna get a bit weird in here.
No, it's nothing sexy.
Sorry, what?
It's kind of where we talk about a Savage Worlds book from cover to cover.
Like some sort of book club.
Well, essentially, yes.
Well, in that case, I'm leaving. Oh, yeah. See you later.
All right, Gary, City of the Steam Sun. I want to find out about this. What's up with that?
Oh, that's where I'm starting. City of the Steam Sun JumpStart. Now, before I start with this, to be fair, I just want to go back to Guardians of Umbra. I could possibly be wrong about this 100%. I want to start with the layout and some of the good things about it. City of the Steam Sun is a steampunk setting. I believe it's quoted in the book as a tabletop role-playing game in the steampunk stylistics designed for detective, Victorian horror, and adventure genres. So the events take place at the end of the 19th century, and this place, which was supposed to become the utopia of the rational age, but due to an unknown cataclysm, fell into the gray and gloomy world of limbo. So that's kind of the setting in a nutshell. The age of reason happened. Religious influences fell to the wayside. Science stepped to the forefront, and they decided to create the city on an island in the Adriatic Sea. Now, the city is called KRK, and I don't know how to say that, because it's the authors are Gleb Igamnov and Vitaly Simonov. I believe they're a couple of Russian guys. So some of the stuff,
maybe Kirk, like the captain.
It could be. It's something along those lines. So to be fair to these guys, some of this stuff is going to get lost in translation, which is, I think, part of the problem that I had when I was reading it. But anyways, the layout is pretty decent. It's got some nice cover art. Inside, everything is nicely laid out. It's well put together. It has a steampunk feel to it. The art is nice. And the adventure, while okay to me, just reads a little crazy. So we'll get into that here in a bit. So, excuse me. This JumpStart's 20 some odd pages, and it starts off with the Age of Reason. So you're going to get a couple of pages of the introduction where it tells you about what the actual deal is with this city. Like I said, it starts off in 1800s, and it goes into a little bit about the Age of Reason, how science stepped up, and they decided to build this city. The city was built, and it was around for maybe 10, 12 years, something like that. And then one day it just disappears. No explanation as to why it disappeared. The city's just gone, and all that's left is this whirlpool. Now they don't. That's what is written in the book. But the weird part is like this whirlpool. I don't know if it's continual, if it's always there, or what the deal is. But that's all that's left. It also tells you in the first introduction part that in 1875, so let's just try and do a quick bit of math. It disappeared in 1872, and the city was built in 52. So it was there. The city was there for 20 years, and then boom, disappeared. There was a lot of adventure or inventions and new discoveries that were made in the city because it was all based on science and stuff. It was a city of the future kind of a thing. And then it just when it disappeared in 1872, nobody had any idea what was going on. Well, 3 years later, the train that led out to the island from the mainland, or sorry, the train tracks that led out, a train appeared on them and came back into town. And then you find out sort of the rest of the story, which is, to me, just utterly nuts. So what happened is somehow this world went into, or this location, this city, went into an alternate reality, is how it's explained. In this alternate reality, they describe it like it's in limbo, the Catholic version of limbo, which is essentially, it's very gloomy, it's dark, there's no sunlight, any of that kind of stuff. And then some demons showed up. And they came back, and the demons were like, hey, you guys want to go back to your own world? We can set it up so that you can leave limbo and you can go back to your own reality. And why everybody wasn't on that first train is beyond me, because as soon as a demon shows up, I'd have been like, F this place, I'm out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Demons say, hey, you want to go live in this city? We're going to put you there. It's going to be demons now living there. Is that what they said, basically?
Yeah, and this is, like everybody knows what demons are and sort of how horrific they are, but these aren't those demons. These are, hey, friendly demons. We're going to show up. We're going to we're going to integrate ourselves into your society. We're going to be super helpful and friendly. There's no word of these demons like with any ulterior motive inside of the PDF. So it's just, yeah, demons show up. They're like, hey, here we are. Here's some new cool stuff called brimstone, and have at her. Make some cool stuff. It's just, it is so full of holes because I don't understand. Here's the thing. If you take away sunlight, you take away life. So they do say that a lot of people died, but basically everybody should have died. I don't know how they found food or anything that would grow down here that a human could eat, but this place must just be riddled with scurvy because there's no way a single fruit or vegetable is growing in an area that has no sun. It is.
Wait, didn't you say that it was a city based on science?
Yes.
Like they could have found other ways to grow food.
Somehow they managed to find food there, and so that's how they explain everybody not dying. But a lot of the population actually did die. Eventually, it's called City of the Steam Sun because eventually they created a sun that is on an arc over top of the city. Like, you just imagine one half of the McDonald's sign, and you put a sun on it, and every day it goes across the sky and creates a bit of sun on your deal.
That sounds cool.
It does it? It sounds like an absolute nightmare to me, to tell you the truth. So that is the gist of the game. Now, there are little spots in this PDF where it kind of breaks down what's going on. It tells you sort of like the game events. It takes place in the middle of the 1890s. This place has become... So your adventures take place in the 1890s after all this has happened. There is a deal now where some companies provide startup capital for you to go back into limbo and start businesses, I'm assuming. And then there's also these rumors of treasure, but it immediately explains that these are over-exaggerated. So I'm not quite sure where we're going with that. Either there is or there isn't. It's... Yes, Paris.
So the players start in our world and have an opportunity to go to limbo?
No. Oh. There is now just a transition between our world and limbo. So you can, it would be like if you wanted to go on vacation or go live in a place where it's 100% crap all the time. Like, nobody would do that. It's the weirdest thing. So where was I at here? So this place now is actually surviving. It's called the Web. It's no longer called the City of the Steam Sun. Everybody refers to it as the Web. And you can go here, and there was let's see. So where am I at here? Here is so the city moved into this other reality, one akin to limbo, where it's dark and gloomy and the sun doesn't shine. Thousands of people died, or I guess basically almost everybody died in the city, and then they made this. These demons showed up, or they discovered brimstone. Now this is where this setting turns into Deadlands, almost verbatim, which is really weird. So Deadlands has Ghost Rock, the city of the Steam Sun has brimstone. Here's an excerpt from the PDF. Many citizens had died during the intervening 3 years, but the survivors managed to find food, water, minerals, and most importantly, a hitherto unknown mineral that burns several times longer and hotter than coal. It was named brimstone. Here's an excerpt from Deadlands. The new ore was discovered within hours, and its true potential realized in days because of the eerie howl it emits when burned. Miners called it ghost rock. The stuff was found to be nearly 100 times more efficient than coal. So they've essentially got their own version of ghost rock. But it gets better. So the demons show up and offer to restore communication with the outside world. Because of, and in it also says in exchange for the right to establish trade. I don't know what a demon needs money for. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know why it doesn't really expand on why they want to establish a trade. There isn't enough stuff in here to explain what the demons are doing. So it's just kind of like a hole in the whole entire story. You know what I mean? And it's like I was saying earlier, if demons aren't enough to make you shit your pants and run for the hills, I don't know what is, because I'd be out of here in a heartbeat. Not only is the place a dump, but you have these crazy demons, right? So somehow science and technology continue and boom, and we get this stuff called technomagic. Now, technomagic, I'll explain later in more detail. They say nobody knows how it works. So there's a city of scientists that can't figure out how the properties of this brimstone actually work, is what it sort of says in the book. And so here's again another sort of contradiction, is when you get into the technomancy stuff later, or the technomagic stuff, it explains in exact detail how finely tuned you need to tune everything in for an item that nobody knows anything about. I'll get into that in a bit. So in order to get people back into this lightless dump full of demons, some program offers startup money and rumors of treasure. But the very next paragraph contradicts that and says that the contracts are shady and the rumors are greatly over-exaggerated. So, well, you know, like, here's the reason to go back. Oh, wait a second, don't go back because this turns out to be kind of shitty. The city manages to live and eventually gets renamed to the web. They create a sun that goes over the city on a rail to simulate sunlight, and then continue to make stuff from a material that they don't know anything about. Like it's literally says in the book, they don't know how this brimstone stuff works. I feel that part of the story needs to be cinched up, or just write less about it so that more of it can be left to my imagination. I don't need a full description of the fine details of all of that, right? It's just weird because they don't know anything about the material in use, but you need to have like incredible precision to create stuff, is what it basically says. You're almost using intuition to finely tune in these parameters. So that is the city of the Steam Sun. Now there's a couple of characters. There's the detective, an inventor, and a technomage, and they all have a little backstory, and they're decently fleshed out pre-gens. Nothing in there written about playing a demon, though. It does say in the full version, City of the Steam Sun, you're going to find more than 40 new edges, 6 new hindrances, as well as a broad range of air, steam, and technomagic weapons. So then we get into the technomagic stuff after we go through 3 pages of pre-gen characters. Now this section was hard to read. I get that there's a Russian-English translation thing going on, so I'm going to give it a pass on the English, but essentially this guy Charles Strangelove is the inventor of technomagic. Which is weird science in Deadlands in every way, just like I said, switch out the ghost rock with the brimstone. It says here, unlike classic mages, technomages use spells not with the abilities of their own organism, but a specially designed equipment on which the power of the technomage mostly depends. So it's weird science is really what it is. You're using devices to encapsulate spells and stuff like that. It says that it may seem to an uneducated person that for practicing technomagic, a full purse is all you need, but this is not true. Now, I've highlighted this because this just reads weird to me. A technomage needs to enter a certain set of values into the programming unit to use any power. These base values of this set are the signature of the power. Signatures are known, and to get them is usually not so difficult. In brackets, although for powers that demand rank of a veteran or higher, the master can make a search to be a separate task. The problem is that to use the power properly, you need an accurate signature setting, and the setting values are completely individual, plus they can vary for different power levels after a while. Do you see how specifically detailed and finely tuned that sort of sentence is? So why say that we don't know anything about Brimstone and it's this weird stuff, but then on the next, contradict yourself a few pages later saying that everything needs to be detailed in. So, namely, the ability to feel at the intuition level the necessary settings is the factor that separates people who are able to become technomages and people who are not capable at all. Give me 1 second.
I'm just wondering, Gary, if the way I was reading that was the brimstone is the power source, but the actual transferring of that power to however a technomage uses it, that's the detailed bit. So the power sources might be so much undiscovered or not completely understood. But that doesn't mean they can't use the power source to turn it into something else.
Mm-hmm. But like I say, it to me, in my mind, you can't do science unless you know, like, specifically sort of what's going on. It seems to be like Brimstone is this weird random generating thing that you somehow have to finely tune or know all the specs on. It contradicts itself inside of this PDF. So they state earlier that they don't know how it works, but now state that it's very precise. How can it be precise? And now the material is mysterious and unknown. And then lastly, it just says that you need intuition to make it precise, which is why everyone isn't a technomage. It is again, intuition is basically, I just feel like this is how it's going to work. I have a feeling is what intuition is, right? But now you've essentially turned this technomage into what could be an acupuncturist. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just all of a sudden I'm just using faith to determine instead of scientific principles, which is, I'm very scientific when it comes to what I deal with in life and stuff like that. I'm not a very faith-driven person. I'm not religious. I'm more on the science side. So when I read this kind of stuff, it's like if you're going to create a device, you would want a repetition so that your method works every time instead of just using your intuition, which is, I'm just going to leave it to faith, which is not something a scientist would do. Oh yeah, we're just, we just do this and do that, and all of a sudden. So to get into the technomage part, you need 4 parts to make this deal. You also need a signature if you want to use this. I don't even get this part too. So you need a signature from the chancellor to use other people's stuff. So if somebody makes you an item, a technomancy item, you have to get a signature from somebody. Now, it says you need 4 parts to make them. You need a battery, an emitter, a programming unit, and goggles. Okay, so the battery, it says you can only charge the battery at charging stations on the outskirts of town, and there is a battery exchange program. And each item has 4 levels, remember. Now, when you get into the technomagic stuff and you start looking through it, it's actually kind of detailed. In fact, I think it's too detailed, and I didn't understand some of it. But this is just the breakdown of the battery. You have 4 levels. At level 1, it has 5 pp. I'm assuming that's power points, but it doesn't say. And then you get 5, 10, 15, and at level 4, a level 4 item has 50 power points. Now here's the charging time. 12 hours for a level 1 item. So half your day is gone. 1 day for a level 2, 3 days for a level 3, and an entire frickin' week for a level 4 item. Yeah. This is nonsensical in a gaming term because you're in the middle of trying to determine, your adventure or whatever. Oh, hang tight, guys. I need to take a week off while I charge my level 4 item before we go in here. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like the charging for the time. It says level 1 and 2 are free. Level 3 is 50 sols, which is their unit of currency. It has a conversion rate. But level 4, it says charge for charging time at level 4. It says impossible. I don't know what that means.
So, yeah, why would you bother?
It should be.
I mean, I look at this and I see 4 pages long of explanation for one arcane background, and just what you're mentioning that here, like the time for recharge and all that. Why would anyone bother taking this arcane background? I don't know. I'm not interested one bit after hearing what you have to say about it and seeing 4 pages long of explanation. Although, granted, weird science in Savage Worlds is a bit, more expanded. Although they streamlined it in one of the last updates there, but it's still simpler than this. Well, and then you got charts for programming unit and emitter, and it's like doing a budget every time you want to cast a spell, basically.
Yeah, so like I said, there's just a lot of contradictions and a lot of holes in this thing. I don't know why charge for charging time should be a unit of money. Is the word impossible? That needs to be cinched up and fixed. So like I said, they tell you in the beginning here that you need 4 items in order to do this. The second one is the programming unit. Now, the battery is obviously the source of energy for the spells. The programming unit is what you put the spells into. So again, there's 4 levels. They cost different amounts of money, but each one of these levels holds a different number of powers, 3, 5, 7, and 10 for level 4. So with the programming unit, a level 4 programming unit, you can have 10 spells in it. The emitter, strength and duration of the power effect depend on the quality of the manufacturing of the emitter and focusing lens. So this emitter also has a number of saved powers. So if you have 2 level 4 things, you can have 20 powers. You get a Technomagic check modifier at level 4, it's +4, and then again at level 4 with the emitter, it's +4 to affect powers. So you have variances, right? With the lower stuff, you take negatives, which is again something that I don't like. At level 1, you're taking a -2 to affect once only powers. -1 duration. So, and then at level 1 for the programming unit, your Technomagic check is a -2. It should be 0 at level 1. There shouldn't be negatives to it, and you work your way up. Because why would I take this at level 1? You're suffering a shit ton of modifiers, and negative modifiers. You wouldn't be able to cast or do anything. I hope that this was play tested thoroughly. The last thing it says is these goggles that you need. They're specially manufactured goggles used by technomages. Now remember, it said that you need 4 things. And then it says at one of the second to last paragraph, it says actually a technomage can work without these goggles. It's like the page before they're telling me that I need them. This page says no, you don't. But if you do have them, you get detect arcana out of them. It's like once again. So then there's again these goggles now hold power. So if you have 3 level 4 items, that's 30 spells that you can store in these things. 30 spells, but you only get 50 PP, and it takes a week to recharge them. This is so insane. It does say in block text here that I do want to read this out. In the full version of City of the Steam Sun, you will also find a description of miracle workers. Now we're incorporating priests and priest spells. Miracle, I believe, is what it's going to be, right? Because religion still plays a part in this. Who create miracles at the cost of their vitality. So there's like a whole other set of things going on with this. And dark magicians who prepare their spells in advance, following rituals with sacrifices, and then they are able to use these spells at the right moment effortlessly. So you now are incorporating, again, frustrated because we're talking about a place that used to be Earth, and on Earth we know, well, I guess there's still miracles, people, priests and stuff are said to heal, and shamans have all this, so fair enough. But now we've got magicians and stuff in here too. So it's muddying the waters with all of this stuff. Instead of just being steampunk, you now have magic casters and healers and stuff. Okay, so now we get into the adventure part of it. Now, this adventure is called The Case of the Missing Student, and I almost this was the point at which I almost put this book down and stopped reading it after I got through the first thing. There is one cool thing that I liked about this. And in the city of Limbo, it says about things written in newspapers. And this is a great idea. It's one of those moments where I'm like, oh, I could use this. So what it says is newspapers are a big thing. People that are adventuring here, because you start a detective agency. It says that people that are inside the city should either hear the paperboy calling out hints, hey, read all about it, so-and-so slaughtered in a back alley, kind of a thing, right? And I'm like, that is a great way for a third-party character or whatever, an NPC, to sort of help your players navigate through positions that they might get stuck at. There's some stuff in a box text here that I have no idea what it has to deal with. There's like 4 things that sort of don't really deal with anything. But let me get to this part here, because this is the part that literally drove me nuts. I am really familiar with box text. Like it's a thing, right? In D&D, especially in modules, it's read the box text, and then here is a description of what you're reading. And you should essentially read the entire module before anybody tries to play it. So scene 1 starts off and it gives you this description: a gentleman who introduced himself as Klaus Heinzing, and it goes on to describe Klaus and that he's unkempt and unshaven, and he came straight from the train and all of this other stuff. It's all in the sort of the pre as to what it's about. And then in italices, it essentially just says the same thing, Klaus Heinzing, and it starts off in quotes. Good evening. That is, of course, morning. Excuse me. I did not have time to tidy myself up after a long way. My train was delayed for 10 hours due to the guild driver's strike. And then it essentially, Klaus is telling you exactly what it says in the previous box text. So you have to read the same thing twice. It's like, here's this guy, Klaus. He's a hot mess. He just came straight from the train. He's unshaven. He's the detective guy. And then Klaus, when you impersonate Klaus or you read the italicized text, it's Klaus telling you the same thing. Hey, I just came from the train. Sorry about my looks. I'm a lawyer for this family. And it's like those two. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Box text first, so that, and use what he is saying to explain to me a lot of the background details, and then take the pre-part and put it after the box text and explain just the missing pieces. If you read page 14 and 15, you'll totally see what I mean. And it drives me mental when I had to read it actually twice. I'm like, I'm now playing the part of Klaus Heising, telling you exactly what the private parts of the DM section for this interaction are. So I don't want to go into too much detail about the adventure because some people might want to play this. Other than to say the very last thing that it says in the book, it says the city of Steam Sun is designed for adventures in 3 main genres. So I feel they nailed this. It's a detective story, which is what it is, a Victorian horror story. There's parts of it that are very horrific, and an adventure novel, all combined with the exploration and secrets of the world. So in the full version of the book, you will find 3 ready plots, as well as information about the past and the secrets of Limbo, which you will create your own existing stories. Now, once I pushed my way through all of the adventure. When I read this, I was like, okay, I can see they've actually incorporated those 3 elements into this thing. You go to the university and there's some racist stuff in here, and I don't know if they know it or not, but here's the thing. And this adventure is written so poorly that I don't even know. Like, you're trying to find this missing guy, so you go to the university, you talk to 4 or 5 different professors, and then you talk to one guy, and that guy's like, I don't know what's going on here, see you later. All of the other professors are like, you want to go talk to this Rene Fossil guy or whatever his name is. And so when you finally get to him, he's like, I don't know who this student is. But every other professor's like, oh, he hung out with this guy, he had great praise for this guy. And then you get to the professor's like, I don't know, and he takes off running. Well, like, who do you think did it? I mean, it's so freaking obvious that it's ridiculous. But one of the professors that you meet, and here's, I got to do just one. Because this is so nonsensical that it just baffles me. You go to the university and it gives you the DM's block first. You read this part of it. The steam tram is going to the university. The Blocks is surprised at a new silent how the steam engine is. It's hard to read because again, I'm giving it a pass because of the English to Russian translation thing here. But so you go to the university on a steam train that is silent. And then there's a whole thing with these telegrams that you should just offer the telegrams instead of making the telegrams from the lawyer guy a whole thing. If you didn't get the telegrams, now it's telling you as the dungeon master to go back and get the telegrams or make this guy reappear and get the telegrams from him. Just give me them in the first place so that I have some reference points to go off of. So you go in and you talk to somebody in the facility, and the guy that you talk to is James Silver. He's a university secretary. Let me just get through this one. If they didn't take the telegrams in the first scene, firstly, they will need to find out which faculties Joseph attended lectures at. So for this, they can go to the secretariat. They can also find out that Joseph sent a letter 2 months ago that he had to stop education because of personal reasons. And then it says a secretary's 35-year-old, dark-haired, dressed strictly, with a thin mustache, indifferent eyes, and cold manners. His name is James Silver. His speech is measured and almost emotionless. Now we get back into the italicized text, and this is where it just goes nuts, because I feel like this is box text, but could you imagine that now you have to play James Silver? Good afternoon, dear sirs. How can I help you? Are you looking for Joseph Weinstein at the request of his parents? ? Can I see the papers to confirm this? ? It's like, it is like this James Silver already knows the entire story. Do you see what I'm saying? Can I see the papers to confirm this? Okay, now I'll look through his personal files. Oh yes, Joseph studied at our university, mainly attended lectures at the medical and occult facilities, but 2 months ago he sent us a letter that he had to stop his education because of personal reasons, which forced him to leave the web. What? No, that letter was... It's like he's having a you know what it reads in the way as if I wasn't picking up what you guys were saying. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I was only getting my voice. I'm not getting your end of the conversation. So it's designed in such a way that the conversation is pre-led, and it's nonsensical, and it needs a redo. If you just read what the people that you're talking to have to say, you're just shaking your head.
Right. But I think maybe you're missing the point with box text where you don't have to read it, out loud, word for word. It's like a bullet point of answers for certain questions that the players might have or something like that. It could be paraphrased and all that. So I guess it helps maybe to role play that character. But yeah, if you read it word for word, it might not make sense depending on how the scene's going.
And so this is my advice. Put a part in this adventure where it says italicized text is just a general reference point for how you can play this character, because it's not in there. So there is the one thing on the previous page that says, but yes, of course I remember, not the most talented student, but hardworking, which is typical for the Germans. Okay. And then there's another part where it's like, they were choosing medicine as a specialty with this Frenchman, Fossey. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe a touch racist there. Then I highlighted some stuff in here. It says, if the heroes decide to talk to him, he will completely deny his acquaintance with Weinstein. However, with a successful notice check, the detectives will understand why that he is lying. I hate this. I hate this so much. I hate this to my inner core. Not this inside of this PDF, but that idea in general. For the idea for you to walk up and just roll a dice and know if somebody is lying. And I could tell you right now, like a series of lies, and you guys would have no way of telling if I was like, you know what I mean? I could come across as sincere. And the idea of rolling a dice to determine whether somebody is lying or not, it irks me to my core. And it was in this book, and I was just, there's a little bit more racist stuff with I do not like this Frenchman. It's like they keep noting people's nationalities and stuff. And then there's the whole thing with this Rossi, this Rene Fossey guy. You meet him, he's like, I don't know this guy. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, did I he just plays it up like he has no idea. And it's like so obvious when you read this that he's the guy. So if you follow him, he takes off. Now, if you follow him to his house, this is where it gets even worse. There's just 4 bandits hanging outside of his place. So you go in, you do a bit of deals, and then you find his little secret treasure trove of people that he's been experimenting on. It also turns out that he has...
Spoilers!
So I just want to say this. I don't know what you were thinking, but there is a lady and a boy, there's a girl and a boy that have plans to do, they're in love. Somehow they're now connected like a human centipede. And her text says, Alexandra and I wanted to be together. We planned our life after graduating from the university. Now, because of this psychophossy, our life is ruined. We just have to wait until my dear Alexander and I die. Now, it will certainly happen one day. That's all you got? You show up and there's 2 people connected, together, and that's all she's got. She's not like mentally lost her mind and freaking out like, get me out of here. She's like, don't worry about us. I'm here with my dear Alexander, who's basically a vegetable, and we're just waiting to die.
That's the horror part.
That's where the horror part comes in, right? So there's I think there's 3 of them in here, and none of them make any sense. And then Fosse shows up, and Fosse, if he's not already there, then he shows up, and he's basically like, oh, hey guys, you found me out. Do you guys want to help me do some more experiments? I want to experiment on you. It's like, what? And then if you say no, then he attacks you.
Okay. So yeah, interesting. I'm glad you went through this, and I didn't have to do this myself. Sorry about what seems to be a torture for you. Could you rate this 1 to 10?
You know what? I want to say A for effort. You're trying to throw out a product. You've got an idea. It's heavily influenced, like I say, by Deadlands. I get that feeling, except it's steampunk Deadlands with brimstone instead of ghost rock. And again, this is the JumpStart PDF that we have to go by. Maybe the book is a little more fully fleshed out. One of the guys in here doesn't even have attacks in the NPCs. This one monster guy that's in there, he has no bite, no claw written in there and stuff like I say, maybe the more fleshed out version has some substance to it that you can draw on, and maybe there will be some cool adventures. But this is Victorian age steampunk. It's not my jam to begin with, and the English to Russian translation, you can see how slowly I was reading certain parts of it, trying to make sure that I said all the words properly, and it's hard to read for me. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was like 5 out of 10. The layout's nice. The art's nice. The adventure, if you were to tear it apart and just redo it in your own words, would actually be a decent adventure. It does hit all of the beats of a detective story, a Victorian horror story, and an adventure novel. But I don't know what to tell you. It was really hard for me to get through this. I think the Technomancer guy is overcomplicated. I think that there's just parts of it that are they're just nonsensical. There's a lot of plot holes and a lot of contradictions in certain things that maybe will get fleshed out in the full PDF. I can't say. So yeah, it was painful to say the least.
So do you've given some leeway for the language barrier. Some of the things that I picked up on that you were talking about was when you were mentioning demons and that kind of thing. I'm just wondering whether we're looking at the demons from a sort of Anglo-Christian kind of perspective, as opposed to maybe they have a different take on what a demon is. There was parts of it that interest me. One of the questions that was burning me the whole time we were talking, and I wanted to ask Eric, was there any pressure to get these jump starts out at a certain time because of the Kickstarter that you're aware of?
Well, it was a soft deadline. It was between, I think, January and April.
Okay, so it's still big, but yeah, because I guess one of the things that stood out to me was that proofreading obviously needed to be done in certain areas, at least by someone, if you're presenting it to an English audience, an English proofreader. There are, I mean, there's a lot of elements there that I could pull from a whole bunch of different genres. The brimstone is pretty blatant as you put it there. The biggest question I had was, why would I play this over Rippers? That was the thing I kept asking myself all the time we were talking. And there are elements in it that interest me, and I'm eager to see what the final PDF is. From this Jumpstart, I'm not sure whether I'd put the money into the Kickstarter, which is, I'm assuming, what will happen. Is there a Kickstarter for this that we're aware of?
Yeah, there's an Indiegogo campaign that started the same day as the new Savage Rifts.
Yeah.
So and they're struggling with their Indiegogo campaign. I'm still puzzled by the decision of launching it the same day as Savage Rifts. The fact that it's Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter, what I'm going to tell the audience here is that for some countries, it's impossible to launch a campaign with Kickstarter. Some countries aren't supported by the platform, so people turn to Indiegogo. I've personally backed project on Indiegogo before, and I don't have any complaints. But I understand that in the U.S., people see Kickstarter as the brand name, the standard in quality, so that Indiegogo doesn't get the same love. But yeah, they're struggling right now.
Is this a Russian product that's being translated, or is this something that's being created from scratch?
From what I understand, it was first in Russian, and now
so this already exists, and it was obviously popular in Russia, or at least within the gaming community there.
It must have been. I don't know. I'm not really in touch with the Russian Savage Worlds community. So
all that Russian mafia stuff you were doing, and you never stopped to look and check the Savage World community, dude. Come on. The impression that I got from this was that it wasn't ready for release in terms of the Jumpstart, and I'm wondering if that's what's hurting them at the moment. There are concepts in there that I really like, and there's probably enough in there that I would look at the book maybe if it came out on drive-through.
Here, let me read you this. Eventually you're going to find this guy, and this is the description. He's a broad-shouldered blonde with thin features and very beautiful hands. That is the description of Joseph Weinstein. You see what I mean? Like, I don't get why would you put in very beautiful hands? Like, somebody's going to notice that. So he's absolutely exhausted. His face is covered with bristles. He underwent experiments connected with innervation. In the nape of his neck, he's got a limb implanted that resemble a hand. And there's there's an eye on it. There's a Mage mechanical eye prostheses in general. So he's got basically a hand with an eyeball in the back of his neck, and he's been. It says he's in a clear state of consciousness.
That's beautiful.
Okay, just hang tight. Mm-hmm. Hang tight. I am this Rene Fossey guy. I take Eric to my dungeon without his permission. This is not a sexy thing, and I tie him up to a table, and I attach a hand with an eyeball to the back of his head, and this is his response. Damn, Fossey, I should understand that if all of the professors estimate my abilities as average, and one suddenly suggests writing a thesis under his supervision and participate in his experiments, then there is clearly something wrong. However, it's not for nothing that they say that genius and insanity go hand in hand. This shit which he implanted into my back really works as a third eye. That is Joseph's that's what he says when you meet him in italic.
Does it thumb up after that?
Do you know what I mean? It's like his head. He's in a state of clear consciousness. You wouldn't be freaking out like, get this frickin' thing off my neck. What the hell's going on? Like, you would lose your mind. And this he's like, man, I should have known. I should have known better. And he's got beautiful hands, but he should have known better. It is the weirdest read.
Again, it could be translated like in a Cthulhu horror thing. You could have someone talk to you like it's perfectly natural to look like you've got tentacles and stuff coming at your backside or your head or something. and that can be part of the horror, as Eric mentioned before. So, but I see what you're saying. It's is a little odd.
All three of the experiments are so nonchalant about what was done to them. None of them is freaking out, except for the one guy that goes into a berserking rage, this behemoth. But he has.
Hey, I may be a mutant now, but at least I'm not French.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah,
all
they're freaked out about the French and the Germans more than the freaks with hands in the back of their head.
Yeah. From
All right, can we move on now?
Let's do it.
It's been like 40 minutes.
So you loved it then. Good.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. That was very thorough.
You owe me. You owe me. You owe me.
You owe me.
I just wish the listeners could see Gary's face right now.
I have a hard time sort of being mean because you know what? Kudos to these guys for at least attempting. I have never personally written anything myself, so you know, A for effort is really how I have to leave it. It is nicely laid out. It hits all the beats that they were trying to do. It has some potential, but I think that English to Russian translation thing throws such a wrench in it for me that I couldn't.
Was it actually a human centipede kind of connection thing?
I'm right there. So Mary Archette.
How she tells the story if she's got her mouth.
Mary Archette and Alexander Rulev. She is a thin and fragile brunette. The features of her face say that one of her ancestors came from Europe, from the East. Alexander is a big blonde brown guy. With a fleshy face. Mary has no legs. Her body is united to Alexander's body at the stomach, like Siamese twins. Alexander is only capable of incoherent mumbling. Mary retains partial lucidity. Right? So I get the image that he's laying on the ground and she's propped up on him like, say, the upside down letter T. He's the base and she's the stem. And she has no legs and she sits on his stomach. And she's perfect. And this is what she says when she's like, Alexander and I, she just tells you about their life. Oh, we were going to be together. Like no sense of the dilemma that she's in. And that's what I don't know.
Yeah, we'll cut this part out. All right, let's take it to the edge.
Take it to the edge. So hindrances, that's what we're talking about today. Hindrances is quite an interesting experience for new players of Savage Worlds. And I have noticed a lot of new people come to it and have problems with the concept of hindrances, or at least how they're put out in the book or how it relates to what they want to do with their characters. And as we know that hindrances are the core of player character or all characters in the game, I just wanted to cover a few of the things that I found interesting or that was worthy of debate, and hopefully you guys can either set me on the right path or we can have a challenging meeting of the minds, which would be pretty cool. So the first one is how to interpret the hindrances as listed in the book, and are they to be taken as literal as they're written? So in my experience, as I was saying, new players tend to read the hindrances and looking for the right one. So they come up with a character concept and they want, right, I want this hindrance, or I'm looking for a hindrance that'll fit what I have in my mind for this character. And when they go to read it in the book, it doesn't fit exactly, or there's half of it missing, or it gives a negative, or it gives a hindrance that they weren't looking for with the original concept. So my question to you, gentlemen, is how should hindrances be approached by players and the GM, and how much leeway should be given to adaptation of the hindrance? So when you were looking at your at Wise Guys, Eric, you did put some new hindrances in your book, and what made you feel that you needed to put those in as opposed to not using specifically everything, or not finding what you were looking for within SWADE?
So when you look at hindrances, To me, they are cues, role play cues, used by the players to earn bennies during gameplay. Also during character creation, of course, to gain bonus points for more edges or skill points or attributes. So to create new ones, I think you have to dissect a little bit how hindrances are constructed. So first you have the name of it, and then most hindrances are gonna, all of them have at least a descriptor, and then some of them also have penalties, mechanical part of the hindrance. Some of them it's only the name and role play. So yeah, you start with that, and I think what happens a lot is people just look at the name and go off with that. Now, most of the hindrances, actually, the description matches the name, but sometimes it can be confusing. Like in Adventure Edition, you look at slow, which used to be lame, or the one leg hindrance in Deluxe. Now I hear slow, and I think quick. Is it the opposite of quick? Does that mean that now you get lower cards in initiative because that's what the quick edge is? But no, it isn't. It just impacts your pace. So you have to look. You have to actually read it. Some of them describe the name describes. Encapsulates what the hindrance is better than others. Now, to make your own, I think what you're trying to ask here, and I mean, you can let me know if that's not what it is, but you're basically trying to find out how do you use existing hindrances and sort of, we keep using that word, trap them differently to mean something else, is it?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples of ones that specifically have come up with players that I've had. So the first one being arrogant, okay? So the arrogant edge. And if you read it in the book, except for the word painting, it all seems very focused on combat. The whole thing is about being better than the other person in combat, and you'll do whatever you can to make them look silly or and bring them down and show them up in front of other people. But for me, arrogance, and for a lot of players, arrogance isn't about combat, and it doesn't always have to be played out as you're going to show up a person straight away or make them look inferior. It could be, how do I explain it? So, for instance, if you're looking at non-combat situations for the arrogant hindrance, what about the arrogant noble or the arrogant businessman or the arrogant politician? There's no combat in there, and a lot of the time, it's not about so much showing up the person they're speaking to. They may have an air of superiority about them. They may not even, they're more likely to not acknowledge someone through that arrogance as opposed to taking the time out of their busy schedule to deal with someone beneath them and try and show them up, if you know what I mean. And so when people have looked at that arrogant edge, they're going, this is all about combat. I was looking to make a guy that, walked around thinking that he didn't stink and would talk to people in that vein, but wouldn't necessarily call them out. He might just ignore someone. So I've had that discussion with a couple of people. And then code of honor. The wording in the book sort of implies the idealistic version of a medieval knight. And yet we've got many examples in pop culture of a code of honor behind a race or a person that doesn't fit in that model. So things like the Klingons in Star Trek. Say again.
Samurai code.
The samurai code, the code that the Klingons follow in Star Trek, the Dothraki code in Game of Thrones. So each of, taking those as an example, each three of those have a version of honor that applies to them. Yet a samurai would have been known to have killed a peasant if they just looked at him the wrong way and got away with it in a certain period. And they still had a code of honor that they lived by. The Klingons are all about, dying in battle as part of the code of honor, but everything has to be about force and about showing strength. That's their code of honor. And the Dothraki, man, some of the stuff they got up to, but in their own family or their own unit, they had a code of honor that they lived by. And if you broke that code of honor, there were some serious consequences, which is what a hindrance should be. So when I've seen guys look at code of honor, that they've had an idea for their character, and they've looked in the book and they've gone, it doesn't compute with what I was looking at. So how do you as GM, you and Gary, turn to a player and go, right, we can use this hindrance because of this, or we can adapt this hindrance because of this, or do you just flat out, no, it's not, it's in the book, it's got to be that way?
What do you think, Gary?
I'm definitely not it's in the book, and that's the way that it has to be. This whole book, in fact, any RPG for me is now just a sort of a set of guidelines. And like you say, when you're reading this, if they would have just stopped at the first sentence or the first paragraph in Arrogant, everything would have been fine. One of the things that I like about Hindrances is when it adds a penalty to you mechanically or something like that, and the ones that don't, I just have a hard time with. But this one here, like when you read Arrogant right out of the book, your hero doesn't think he's the best, he knows it. Whether it's swordsmanship, kung fu, or painting, few compare to his skills, and he flaunts it every chance he gets. End it there, you're done. Now, if that hinders you in some way, you're going to get a Benny, because that's what hindrances are. If you sort of, if your hindrance makes your life difficult somehow inside the game, like you show up as an arrogant bastard and the guy's like, no, I don't want to help you, you're a jerk because you've been rude to me since you walked in the door, I would hand that player a Benny and say thank you very much, kind of a thing. But then the next paragraph, like you say, goes all into him about it being all about fighting and stuff like that. So I would just take arrogant for what it means in the dictionary. Like, what is an arrogant person? Because you're right. You can be arrogant and a total poofster. Like, you've all seen those, like you say, the politician or whatever. Well, what if the politician has no fighting ability and he's the face man and he's got arrogant as a hindrance? I totally get where you're coming from. And code of honor is another one. Like, I really don't have an argument for what you're saying. These are kind of nonsensical, because their code of honor, like you say, depending on what game you're playing, will have an entirely different meaning.
Yeah. But that's for us as experience with the game. We're looking at new people coming to it. And also, I think in SWADE, you don't get a Benny anymore for playing your hindrance, do you? I think they took that out as a sort of a hard and fast rule, at least.
Not in my game.
Not your game.
Not my game.
No, I would award Benny still for, if not just because they play the hindrance, and this is something I've always had an issue with new players, is, and this sort of leads into point 2 where we're talking about how to stop hindrances from derailing your game. And we'll only cover this really quickly, but there are times when I've had players that have picked a hindrance and then they'll go, I'm playing this hindrance to the letter of the law, man. And so if their character's got like mean, they are a mean bastard to everybody. But that doesn't have to be the case, does it? Like their character doesn't have to. There must be ways that we can look at mean and code of honor and adapt them so that they can still be a mean cuss to most people. But within their own party, there's sort of that, they have built up this friendship. So he may be a mean cuss to others, but he's still, a kind-hearted man underneath, or something like that. Yeah. Others are things like bloodthirsty. That seems to be the okay for everyone to just run into combat ad nauseum without second thought for anything. It's like, oh, we see someone coming over the ridge. I wonder what his name is. Charge in, kill him. It's just rough. Mm-hmm. Greedy. And just, well, how much treasure did we get? What treasure?
Yeah, all gone.
Play D&D. Someone just go, mine, I take that, mine. Well, apparently Savage Worlds went, hey, look, they gave me a license to be this asshole. Woo, greedy. Put that in. Ruthless is another one. You don't get time to have a talk to someone for the interrogation. Well, apparently the character with Ruthless must jump in and just stab him in the face. Suspicious is another one I've seen derail games, where no matter what's said to this person, everyone's lying to them. Everybody in the party's lying to them constantly, and everything they do just makes the game difficult. So in your experience, have you ever had anyone that's had a character that's picked these what I would call particularly anti-party kind of hindrances as written in the book. How do you deal with them, and how do you how do you deal with it? How do you stop those things from derailing your game?
Well, I think players. Well, I think we all look up to our hindrances as guidelines on how to role play our characters. In other games, you'd have some called alignment that would kind of do that for you. I think mean has been one that people have kind of taken to the extreme. I think you have to remind people that, well, they're going to take him literally, but the end game is to have fun. And when your character overwhelms the rest of the party and takes the fun away from the rest of the party, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's a discussion that you have to have with players. Newer role players don't understand, don't grasp the social contract aspect of a session, where it's not just you, it's a group, and the whole group has to have fun. And I think there are ways to play your character according to those hindrances, mean, that you named, ruthless, but without overwhelming the rest of the party. And those are nuances that you learn with experience and practice.
Yeah, I agree with that to some extent, but I think we've all played with players that have and they've been playing for years, man, and they will still bring that element to the table, and the rest of the group just wants to throw everything at the table at them because they just insist on playing this character that is so antisocial. And what I don't see it too often, thankfully, but there have been times where people have gone, oh, I like this hindrance, and they put that on their character sheet, and then everything they do from then on, it's like that hindrance has given them a license to be the arse. They're going to be the arse, and they're going to take it to the nth degree and just see how far they can push it.
I mean, I don't put up with BS all that much in my games and my players. Basically, in that situation, I would just explain that this player, listen, you're not... Well, what you're doing here is making it less fun for the rest of the group. Mm-hmm. Here's how you could do it better or tame it down a little bit. And I think you can still have fun. But if you don't tame it down, and if you're a distraction for the rest of the group and your problem, I'm not going to invite you anymore. I don't put up. I see a lot of RPG podcasts where, they list a whole bunch of ways to work out problems within your group and this and that. I just don't have the patience for this. This is my hobby. I have fun playing it. If you're making it less fun for me and you want to be that dick, you want to be that guy, then I'm just not going to play with you anymore. I don't know why people go
job offer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people spend so much energy on working on negative aspect of a hobby like this.
Well, in my experience, for some of the players, it becomes it's a control thing. They've never had this much control in their real lives, but they have it in a game situation. It's also a look at me thing. It's like why kids act up in class kind of thing. It's for the attention and that kind of thing. I'm not going to get into sort of the therapy gaming, but to link it back to this discussion part one is, for both of you, what part of, okay, so let's say you see this guy and he's put down mean, he's put down bloodthirst, he's put down greedy, he's put down ruthless, because why not? He can. What guidance do you give about, or how much do you listen to his character concept and go, yeah, okay, then this is how this hindrance will work in our game? How much time and energy, I guess, do you spend on that? Or do you, if you see those things come up on a character sheet, do your alarm bells ring? Does that already start?
No. I think I'm going to ask first what he means by that. what he wants to accomplish with that, and maybe ask him how do you plan on getting along with the rest of the group. And also there's nothing wrong with starting a campaign and saying, this hindrance doesn't fit my campaign. Just it's off limits.
Oh my God, you're not taking my player agency, are you, Eric?
Yep. Eric's all aboard the hate the players train all of a sudden. There is definitely a fine line between player agency and trying to do. I agree with Eric, quite honestly, man. Like, don't show up and make my life miserable. But if you're going to do it in such a way that it adds sort of a fun element, like all of the hindrances that you just described, like ruthless and mean and all this other stuff, if the idea is, like you said earlier, you've got somebody strapped to a chair and they've got information and this character wants to walk up and just off them, and that makes it difficult for everybody else, this is where time for me would just come to like a very slow crawl, and I'd be like, okay, you reach down for your gun, and I'd just be looking at all the other players like, somebody better stop this guy, tackle him, do something, come on, you know what I mean? Like, and then if your players are okay with it, because again, player agency, not that I really give a crap about my players that much, but let the guy play his character and have his fun, but just be aware that this is who he is, and somebody always better be watching him. Let me say that it would be like B.A. Baracus from the A-Team never wanting to get on the plane. He always made it difficult. So they always had a backup contingency plan where they were injecting him with something, or they've drugged him somehow and then he passes out. You know what I mean? It could be handled in that way. Would be a way to go. So I might let it play out a couple of times, and then hopefully I might just say something. All right, you guys need to rein this dude in, because this is getting, you know what I mean? That might be a way to go too. Have a contingency plan for when he starts to act up.
So going back to your point,
I think
Eric,
players. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Going back to your point, so we have a list of hindrances, but those hindrances apply to NPCs as much to PC. So are you saying at some point that the GM has the right to say, look, this is a story about heroes, these particular hindrances do not apply here, unless you can come up with a bona fide way or a logical way that this hindrance would work with this character, that'd be part of this playing group, why he or she would even bother spending the time with these people, then I'll allow it. But if you can't come up with a good enough reason, that doesn't happen. Would that be something that you'd do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not unknown for any settings in Savage Worlds to have a list of these edges aren't used in this setting, these hindrances aren't used. Like the Doubting Thomas is one that appears in many settings where you can't pick that one. It doesn't make sense. I think what happens, I mean, you're right when you say veteran gamers know better, but I think players have to learn that when you make a character, it's your job to make a character that will fit with the campaign and the dynamic of the group. I was guilty of that a lot and still am a little bit, where I tend to play loners, the lone wolf character that doesn't want to mesh with the rest of the group, thinks he doesn't need the rest of the group. And I think that's fine to an extent, but at some point you have to find a place for your character in the campaign. If you just want to do your own stuff, your own thing, and be disruptive, then you're not making it fun for the group. You're not making it fun for the GM or the other players. And you have to realize at some point that you're a problem. You're not making it fun for people. How to do that? I don't know. I'm not a therapist like you.
Punch in the face.
I handpick my players, the guys that know how to behave around a table. What was that, Gary?
I said just punch in the face. Problem solved.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying do like me. Maybe I should be trying to solve problems a lot more. But I feel like this isn't my job. I have a day job after work. This is my hobby. I'm here to have fun. I'm not here to be your dad or hold your hand and all that. So I don't put up with that.
Is very valid. Like, and I'm trying to keep as much of my work out of this discussion as possible, because I'd see a lot of this in private games, pickup games, or even with friends. And you're right, this is a hobby. Like, how much of your time do you want to invest into managing someone else's personality? And it is hard work. Take it from someone who does it every day. It is hard work. And if you don't want to spend your leisure time doing that, so what can we tell budding GMs out there how to control this bit? And I'll give you another quick example of how it can derail the game, not for the party, but for the player that picked the hindrance in the first place. So I had a guy who made this warrior, and he thought it'd be cool for this warrior to have one arm, right? And I'm like, are you sure you want to go one arm? We're going into dungeons, and there'll be caverns, and we're gonna have to climb walls and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna one arm. I'm the dude. Right? And yet he kept coming up with all these huge negatives to acrobatics or athletics because he had one arm. So how would you do that too? Would you look at the character and say, dude, I love the concept, like, it's fantastic, but you're going to need two arms for this, and you might want to put the eyes back in his head, that kind of thing. How much advice do you give in that area?
I want to play that character, man. That's a great idea. He rolls in with his party, and he's like, I got one arm, and he's doing all this stuff, and you come to a wall, and all of a sudden he's got to climb this like sheer cliff face. Yeah. Your party has to come up with an ingenious idea as to how to get this guy. So you know what I mean? You tie him up with a rope, they all climb up, and then they pull him up, kind of a thing. He's always in. That would actually be pretty funny.
Yeah.
What if you have other players that think like that? But if you've got a bunch of players that don't think like that.
He's hanging on the wall, and then someone falls, and he doesn't have another arm to grab that person that's falling past him. Right. That's fun stuff.
Sorry, it's not my fault. Yeah, I'm sure the three of us could play a game, and all of us could have no arms and just run at each other and still have a bunch of fun doing it. But the way that this sort of game went out was like they were all at the top of this area, all the other party members, and he was down at the bottom, burnt all his bennies, and was just furious because he couldn't play the game. And like I eventually had to sort of give up and let him sort of climb, and I felt like I was cheating him. I felt like I was cheating the game. But there are times when you look at some of those hindrances and you think, man, if that goes on a character, the penalty is huge. And we've talked before in the past about the lack of equality, if you will, with the hindrances in terms of how much they create a problem for a character. But I just wanted, because you guys are more experienced with Savage Worlds, to sort of give your take on. But I don't want to get into the policing the hindrances, because I think we want to take that up into another episode. Is that right, Eric? Where you want to focus on hindrances. But when it comes to you actually guiding a player before they get into the game and say, right, okay, first of all, on one hand, you've got this concept I think will fit into this hindrance, if and why. And then on the other hand is, mate, you've taken this hindrance. I think this is going to be a really bad idea for the party or for you. How do you then consult your player and advise them otherwise? And then I guess, how does that relate to the actual Savage Worlds rules? So I'm assuming we're talking about trappings here and renaming the edge or hindrance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm not sure what you're getting at. I mean, if there's the hindrance that a character wants, let's say blind or mute, I'm just gonna make them aware. You won't be able to see and fight so well, right? Yeah. Or you're not going to be able to communicate during the campaign through your character. We have a player in one of the games that we're playing later today, and he's mute. She's mute, the character. And I mean, if they're aware of it, they have to suffer the consequences. It's a hindrance. So they, they have to live with it. Now, if I foresee that a certain hindrance might just be too much for this campaign, like, you might not want to take this one because of this. I think giving a heads up is a good thing. But other than that, I mean, you pick the hindrance, deal with it.
Okay. Gary?
Let's not forget that you can hindrances can be given and taken away. So if you do take ruthless or mean or something like that, you could always put in an element where they rescue a little girl and this little girl won't let them go and she softens their heart or something like that as a role-playing technique where you can't be an a-hole all the time. Now you have this little girl kind of a thing that you have to look after, so you can't be swearing and cursing and calling everybody out and sort of role-play the idea that she's super dependent on him. You know what I mean? And I try and maybe work it so that, okay, we're going to get rid of your ruthless and give you some hindrance or whatever that makes you like an obligation or something like that. You're now obligated to this little person or something, and maybe switch it out over time. As long as your hindrance isn't going to be a big FU to the party, I really don't look at people's character sheets. When you start bringing it up in game and it becomes a hindrance or it becomes a hindrance, it becomes an issue inside of the game. Like I say, that's my gist. I'll slow it down, sort of explain to the person, if you do this, this is going to happen. You're creating a problem. This is going to be my resolution. If you kill this guy, you will have no idea how to get any information about where you need to go next, and you're essentially killing the entire quest line because this guy knows what you need to know, kind of a thing. And so hopefully I could just talk some common sense into them. If not, it's basically I'll let all the other players know that you might need to do something about this player, and then I'll just have them attack her, beat her up.
Yeah, I think there are ways. I mean, I've seen it where the party police themselves. That the GM doesn't need to intervene. That the players themselves talk another player out of doing something that might be harmful. And I think it's more effective than the GM saying it. I think peer pressure will have a better effect. I think another thing I'll say last, because we're running out of time here, but people act out of character all the time. Just an example. It's an example from fiction, but I'm sure you can take it from your own life. Like hobbits are supposed to just want to, cook and eat and smoke the pipe, and they don't like adventure. But
that's hippies, dude.
Yeah, hippies too. But it took two hobbits from all the Tolkien books to act out of character and do something that's not according to their hindrances, to make great books, great adventures, great stories. So even if you're arrogant, you could still be humble at some point. And I think that's more interesting than always playing your hindrances to a T. That's when I usually ask the player, why didn't your character go bloodthirsty on these guys all of a sudden? Is there a reason why? Now that there's more depth to a character that way. So I don't think you have to really beat down on your players for not playing their hindrances all the time. They don't have to.
No, I don't. I'm certainly not one to advocate beating down on players for not playing their hindrance constantly or to the nth degree. And I think we'll bring up that more in that next episode you're talking about. But an example I have used in the past is, let's take mean, for example. If you take a character like Riddick, you know who Riddick was, who Riddick is, the character, right? So he could have mean as a hindrance, because when he talks to people, right, he just doesn't care, man. He doesn't care whether you're a queen. He doesn't care if you're another person in the prison, or if he will talk to you matter of factly. He doesn't care if he hurts your feelings. And to me, that's mean, right? But he's not about to do something that's going to detriment someone in his own party unless they're holding him back, and that's a whole different story. But he'll still talk to them and not care whether he upsets them, but he will still hold his hand out and help them up that cliff before the sun, that deadly sun hits, or he'll pass ammo if they need. Do you know what I mean? Like, so he's got
that's
that
a very good example.
So my advice in that respect is to look at characters in pop culture that match some of these hindrances, and then see how they've been played out on the screen. So that when you get a player that goes, yeah, I'm ruthless, man, I'm going to kill everyone. And so, well, hang on, have you looked at this character? They've got that, what we would consider this ruthless edge, but he doesn't slaughter everybody in front of him, right? He's ruthless, like when he takes down, so take Paul Atreides in Dune, he will kill every Harkonnen he sees in combat, but he stops short if it's going to derail his plan or his needs to further his agenda. Right, and yet a lot of people that'll play their characters ruthless will be like, oh, and here's the king of stuff, bang, I shoot him in the head. The whole story's over, man. What are you doing?
I just want to say, you always have the best questions. Like, you always bring the best stuff to the table, man. That's top notch. And what you were talking about with Riddick and how he's that way, to me, this is the perfect example. You could take exactly what you just said and put that argument in place of what we were talking about with Daryl and his quirk versus mean or big mouth, right? Is Riddick really mean? He's just got like foot in the mouth syndrome, where he just continually just says things without regard for you. Now that could be considered a quirk, couldn't it? Because he's not being mean, he'll still save you. Whereas a mean character might just say, let go.
But in terms of the hindrance, if he's talking to the Queen and he's like, I don't really care what your title is, she is going to respond to him differently. So that's where you get the negative in the persuasion, or when he's trying to put his point across. So there's the actual hindrance, right? Because Riddick is saying, look, I don't give a shit about who you are and what you're about, right? I'll do this mission for you only because there's money in it or whatever. That's still the mean hindrance, but he has that person that he's talking to still thinks he's a dick, right? They'll still talk to him, but they won't give him all the possible benefits that they can afford because they still think he's a mean, arrogant ass.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but it mean to me is a thing that you're maybe not all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're out camping, we've been partying for a while, and I sit down and I open my can of tuna and you have no food. Mean means I'm not sharing my food with you. To me, that's what it means. Whereas quirk is like, we'll sit down, I'll give you half my food and stuff, but while I'm doing it, I'll be like, you stupid ass, maybe you should have brought your own food, and I'll give you half of mine, right? Like, I could. Do you see what I'm saying? This is an interesting conversation for next time, because this is the whole Daryl thing that we're talking about.
Cool. Yeah, we're setting this up for another episode on hindrances. Next, we've got a showdown. Actually, we owe our listeners, especially patron listeners, 2 reviews. So we're going to do a showdown of Titan Effect versus Extreme Earth. So Harrison and I are going head to head with this, toe to toe. And then after that, we're going to get back to hindrances, which should leave time for people to write back to us, chime in on our discussion, how they deal with things.
Just speaking of that, Sid the Skyward sent a really awesome comment, but I think it works better for this episode that you're talking about coming up as opposed to this one. So, Sid, hang tight, man. We will get to it.
Yeah. So, let's wrap this up.
My name's Harrison Hunt, and I do what I like. Right now, I ride a mother bike through the mall where I ain't supposed to do that. I'm from the podcast Tabletop Twats, and this is the wrap up, and it's gonna be sick. I'm right now, you can suck my dick, cause I don't give a shit what you think about my so suck my mother big fucking dick. Yeah! What I'm trying to say is it's the mother wrap up, just like Mummy used to make.
So contact info, you can email us on the wild die at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, MeWe, and YouTube under the Wild Die Podcast. We're part of the Nerds International group on MeWe if you want to mingle with us. Twitter, you can reach us on @TheWildDie, all one word. And of course, our Patreon, www.patreon.com/TheWildDie. This is where we have the jingle.
Yep.
Sean Richard, Perry Chalmers, Alan Bray, Conrad Erasmus, Neubert, Greg, Rooney, Corey Judd, Murder Hobo, Show, Ray, Aristia, Rob Tao, and Bubbles, Mammal, Sambs. Max Stark, Pure, Mungle, Stephen, Dragonspawn. Soviets, RPG, Max, Daryl Cotier, Frank, Turfer, Gill, Dashard, Lewin, Strad, Jens, Joe, and Hyde. Don Peterson, Carl Kiesler, Mr. Stag, Remy Billado, Digital Dungeon Master, Emmanuel Pax, and Kevin Stanley.
How's it going, Kevin? How's it going, Kevin? How's it going, Kevin? Kevin. How's it going, Kevin? How's it going, Kevin? How's it going, Kevin? Kevin.
Shall I make a sandwich or shall I put on some spandex again?
Well, welcome to the party.
We got a new Patreon.
Yeah.
Kevin Stanley. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming on board.
How's it going, Kevin? Welcome to the party.
You stop touching yourself when you say that, man.
Just wait here while I go get my spandex pants, Kevin.
Oh my God, he's making a sandwich.
Kevin, that's not mayonnaise on my shorts.
Nasty.
I was trying.
Your hindrance is taking it too far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or no filter. Yeah, that's going to be a discussion next time. No filter. How to deal with that mechanically and in Savage Worlds. And yeah, we'll elaborate more with hindrances. We were kind of short on time because Gary happened with the review. So that's what happens.
Wow. It was an in-depth review. It was good.
Yeah, it was really well put together. So nice. Yeah, this is Eric saying, put on your tights, Gary, and
be more awkward. Be more awkward, Eric.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is Paris saying, share your game with someone new. It can literally change their life.
Right. This is Gary saying, keep your spandex pants on. Keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out.
Wild Die Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Die Podcast.